Hi, I'm Jim Riley, and welcome to All the Right Connections. James Reynolds, President of Mid-Hudson Cablevision. Thanks for joining us.
Jim, always good to be here.
Dave Finger, I keep changing your title. What is it?
Chief Engineer, Jim.
Chief
Hasn't
Engineer.
changed in a long time, man.
No, he said something about satellites before. He threw me off.
All right.
It's nice to see you, Dave. Good to have you here.
Good to see you.
He's not still doing satellite dishes, is he?
No, that's been a long time. We're past all that. But Chief Engineer, all-around nice guy. We like Dave. He's good. He's tall, but he's good. We have an agenda here, and we'll start through the agenda. But first of all, it's just nice to see you. I know how busy you've been. Let's talk about the upgrade to the data network. That's something that has always been a challenge, and we need to keep looking at. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as you know, we've talked a lot on this program about the rebuild of the system, and in particular, trying to add additional capacity to the data network. And the data network really allows people to connect to the internet, whatever device they want to connect. And consumption of bandwidth, internet access, is changing, and it's expanding. We've noticed the utilization of our network continuing to grow at around 5:30 or 6 o'clock every day. When people get off work and get home, they turn on devices, laptops, computers.
Mm-hmm. So we have props today. So I want to make people, they appreciate to see that we have a pad and we have the computer, but it's true.
Right.
It's true.
And depending on the demographics, depending on the family unit, you can have multiple users in one residence consuming bandwidth.
Right.
What happens with that is that our network is divided into a number of sections. We call them nodes.
Right.
And so we are able to watch the utilization in different parts of the system. And we have, warning systems if we get above a certain level. And it's very hard for us to predict the consumption, because with the advent of new content sources, Netflix is the most the most obvious. People are really wanting to stream content, and they do it when they want to, and they do it on any device they want to. You've got an iPad here and a laptop, or they do it on their big screen in their TV room.
Right.
And so we've got constant monitoring of the system to see what changes we have to make to make that experience continue to be a quality experience. And it's a moving target, because we never predicted 2 years ago the amount of utilization and demand there would be for internet. And that's causing us to re-engineer the data network. And by re-engineering, what I mean is that we had all of our electronics, the servers, and all of the routers and electronic equipment that manage the internet network, the data network. They were all in one central location in Catskill.
Right.
And the traditional model for cable TV, Dave will tell you this, is that there is one tower, there's one head end. You receive all the signals
and then
from
send
satellite,
it back out.
and then you send it out to the subscriber base.
Right.
With the data network, it's far more efficient and provides for a much faster experience if you move those electronics from a central location back to the different hub sites that we have closer to the distribution. So we've had to change the architecture, and Dave can talk more about this, but that's required a lot of investment. And
we require more as we go along, unfortunately.
And just as an example, I mean, we can have the network running perfectly, and we have all of our different nodes delivering quality service, but then during the holidays, for example, what happens during the holidays?
Yeah, everybody's home. Yeah,
and
and
a
they're
lot
all
of people
using.
from college. And
Right.
they don't know any other way of life than the internet.
Right, they've grown with it, that's
so
true.
The utilization jumps, and we'll actually have to do some changes to the network, because we see for example, say in Athens or in Cairo, we'll see a spike of utilization, and we'll have to make some changes. And then once we get through that period, we'll have to look at the design and say, you know what, we really need to break those two nodes
Right.
apart and get fewer modems activated, because the other thing that really drives the utilization is games. And
Right.
a lot of people, it's not just young people, it's a lot of
Right.
people
That's
play
true.
these games online, and they consume a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah. So Dave, one of the things, I want to look at two things. One is, it's never going to be less, it's going to be more.
Always.
And again, with films, with games, with music, it requires speed.
It does,
And that
yeah.
means you have to keep changing the architecture. Tell us a little bit about what that's going to mean.
Well, James mentioned the back office things that are going on with moving the electronics from the head end and out to the hub sites.
Right.
We've built a high-speed ring to accommodate that. Excuse me. In addition to that, we're utilizing more channels. Early on in the first days of the internet, there was one downstream channel and one upstream channel.
Right.
And you could get just so much bandwidth out of a channel. Now, the newer modems, we started off with what they call DOCSIS 1,
Right.
DOCSIS 1.1, and then DOCSIS 2, and then DOCSIS 3.
Right.
We're at DOCSIS 3. Mid-Hudson runs at the highest DOCSIS level.
Right.
And we're about to implement an upstream upgrade to the DOCSIS so that the upstream speeds will be even faster.
Right.
These have to do with the channels, and this has to do with all the electronics that goes into these hub sites.
Right.
And it's immensely complicated and immensely expensive.
Right, because the bottom line is this, Dave, if you don't have the speed where these people who use it, and again, we're talking about everybody growing with the internet now, they're not going to be happy. They
It-
can't be served well if they don't have the speed, correct?
It has to work.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about. That's what the challenge is, James, and constantly upgrading the system and why it's so expensive to do so. Tell us a little bit more about what it's going to require.
Well, I think one of the easiest ways to explain it, because it's a complicated process, but one of the analogies that comes to my mind is, we're finally in summertime. It finally stopped raining, and we had some good hot summer days for a change. And so what do people do on a hot summer night when they go home? If they have the ability, they turn on their air conditioner.
Exactly.
And they know when they turn on that air conditioner that they're going to feel nice and cool, but they also know that at the end of the month, they're going to have a higher bill.
Yeah, it has to be.
Because the power grid, the power companies have also a central monitoring system. It's in Albany.
Right.
And they watch the network, the electric grid network, for capacity through these hot summer nights and days. And in fact, a few years ago when they had the big blackout in
Right.
New York, there was a lot of concern and dialogue about the power infrastructure and what they had to do. And they have to constantly make reinvestments in infrastructure to handle the demand on a hot night.
Right.
Now with us, we're not going to cool the house off, but we're going to entertain people and give them information over the internet.
Right.
And when too many people start to use that system, it requires us to look at it and say, all right, we need to make an investment in more equipment here and in this location in order to provide that. And so we're making a big investment, and that's going to force rates to go higher for the internet
It's
service.
unavoidable.
Well, but it's also the fact that I was at a recent conference, and one of the commentators, Ron Insano, I think he's with MSNBC, he was the moderator of a panel, and he made the comment that when he was young, he was the handheld for his father.
Yeah.
He said his dad sat in the chair in the living room, and he goes, change it to channel 6.
Yeah.
And he'd run over and change it. But there's been so many changes in technology, and now we're in an age where, with all the digital content, with Netflix, with Hulu, with Apple TV, with all of these platforms,
yeah.
the smartphones, people get home and they, plan their activities, and then they consume internet and broadband service whenever they want, when it's convenient for them, but they consume a lot of it.
Right.
And so we're having to react to that.
Well, the other part is it's never going to change. And Dave, I want to talk to you about that because that is a challenge. People who are using it now, it's an everyday part of their lives, and they insist on that outstanding service, and that's what requires the investment, correct?
They do, Jim, and that outstanding service is not even a still target. It's a moving target.
Right.
If you can recall, just a few years ago, if you went to a web page, anybody's web page, it was basic. There was a few buttons that you would push.
Right, very
you go to web
simplistic
pages
at that
now,
point,
and there's
yeah.
videos that automatically load, and you watch advertisements pop up and stream.
Right.
I mean, the content of the web page that comes up just by you pushing the enter button is 10 to 100 times more than it used to be.
Right.
And so that uses that bandwidth.
Yeah, and as you said, James, this isn't an option for you. You have to deliver this level of service, correct?
We do, and another, I guess, analogy I'd make is when the PC revolution was taking place, and the all the manufacturers were introducing one new model after another, faster central processors. There was a thing called Moore's Law, and they predicted, Moore's Law predicted that the central processor speeds would double every few years.
Every 18 months.
Every
Yeah.
18 months. I've heard recently that the prediction now is that broadband consumption is going to double every 2 years.
Yes,
And-
you can see it coming.
And it makes sense because when you see all of these new parties entering the content business,
Arena, yeah.
I mean, Netflix is producing their own original series now. You've got all of the paid television
Also
providers.
produce programming,
And,
yeah.
and with all of that content, they have this new expression they refer to as binge viewing.
Yeah.
Binge viewing is where you go to, say, Netflix, and you click on a series, and it shows, maybe 15 or 20 episodes.
Right.
And someone might say, all right, I'm going to watch the first episode, and then just keep watching.
Right.
And watch 5 or 6 of them. And so that's the kind of consumption that is hard to project for us.
Right.
But we've got to make it so that our goal is to try to keep every single one of these subdivisions in our network nodes at 50% utilization. So it has room to grow
That's right.
without getting too congested. But when it gets up to a certain level, we're going to have to break it apart
Right.
and put
So
more equipment in.
upgrading the data system is going to be a permanent thing that you're going to have
ongoing.
to. Yeah, and I think it's important that people know that also means investment in the system. Terribly important.
Yeah, and I think, not to diverge, but it's also one of the things where we operate in a rural marketplace, and we've made, investments since 1970 in this marketplace. First in cable TV
Right.
distribution, and now in fiber optic and internet broadband usage. But there are areas of the rural marketplace where there are not enough homes per mile to sustain the ongoing investment that broadband will require.
Yes.
So there's got to be new technologies, wireless technologies, that get these service to the people differently than a wireline. Just because I think in some cases the assumption is that once we have our crews run a fiber line down a road, the investment's over, and it's not.
Yeah, it's important to remember that. Okay, we're going to move on only because we're going to get a chance to talk about me, which,
Of
as
course.
Dave said before we were on the air, is my favorite topic. But also, to be fair to you, because you're the person who started this entire focus and commitment to local programming. If you remember, you called me some years ago and said, Jim, you owe me. because I would call you and I would ask for investment in different organizations and community, and the company has always been very generous in supporting local groups and local people in need. And I said, certainly, James, what can I do for you? And you said, I want to make a commitment to local programming. You created 2 local programs, Columbia County Spotlight, Greene County Review, Jim Calvin, our pal here in Columbia County, and myself.
Correct.
And I think that was the right way to go. And we did that for a number of years, but now recently you've made another commitment to that, and now we have some very special local programming. Tell us about some of that.
Well, you know far better than I do about these programs because you're the star of the program. And I always thought that you had, much better on-air personality than Larry King. And
I appreciate that. You always said that.
I kid you all the time about getting the suspenders.
That's true.
But no, the program Meet the Chef has been, a wonderful success and very well received. And I think there's a lot of excitement and conversation about it. I've run into people or had conversations with people who said that, they were just going, clicking through the dial and they came across Channel 11, caught part of the program, and it prompted them to go and visit that restaurant. I think the one in Philmont.
Yes. What's that? Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt House, yeah?
And they said, they really hadn't heard of the place before, and they saw the program, and they were interested and went there, and they said that they had a great time.
Yeah.
So, but it really helps, bring the focus back to the local market, and that's not going to get focus from anybody else.
No, and that's what I like. The company's always had that commitment, and that's why I wanted to give you the credit for establishing it. Originally, that's Dave's number. They're calling for his luncheon appointment at this point. But the fact of the matter is, people do want local programming. They very much want local programming. And I've had people stop me many, many times, and I always point out to them that as much as they enjoy the show, they should remember that Mid-Hudson Cablevision is producing this show and making it available. Along with that, we have our old friend Lance Wheeler, who has his show called Neighbors.
Neighbors.
Yeah.
Neighbors.
And what I like about that is that covers everything in both counties, much like Meet the Chef does, and people really enjoy seeing stories about their hometown.
They do, and they like to see, stories about, people and events that would otherwise not get covered, but they're of interest because you live in the region.
Right, and the big one that they do, Dave, and you're familiar with this being in Columbia County, is the Flag Day Parade here in Hudson. And that's something the company supports as well. Mm-hmm. But when that's on the air, I get a lot of very positive comments about that show as well. One of the other things that I like is that the committee, you have a committee that does this now, which I'm terribly thrilled with because I know most of the folks on the committee, is that they developed one called Salute the Vet. I think that's a very, very important commitment that companies made.
Well, it is because everyone should be very grateful and respectful to the commitment that the men in the service, and men and women in the service, have made for this country. I mean, it's many, many years now that we've been engaged in wars, and so it's really the least we can do to recognize some of them and their stories, and so we're happy to try to put that program together. And I know that, again, you're right in the middle of that, and it's a powerful story.
It really is, and I'm a veteran myself, and I have a great deal of respect for these folks that provide this service, but it makes it more comfortable for me to discuss it with them as well. But I do want to remind the public, and I'll remind you now, that none of this can happen without the commitment of the company. I think you can be very proud of the fact that you've made this commitment and that the staff here is absolutely outstanding. Your production crew with Ryan Oswald and Lori Pulver, Tom Young, who I've recently met, who comes out of New York City originally, and they just do a marvelous job in producing. I know you're very proud of them.
We are, and as we've mentioned on this program before, I remember the days when we had this, what I refer to as a little black box. It had, a few monitors, maybe 4-inch monitors, so you could see 2 or 3 cameras, and we'd lug this into maybe the Catskill High School auditorium, and they'd have a public meeting about something. This is back in the 70s.
Right.
And Columbia Green Community College was up in Athens.
That's correct.
At the time. And Toby Carey.
Right, he started the whole process.
Was there.
Yeah.
But you were involved up there, and we worked closely with Columbia Green Community College in terms of trying to, develop the capability to do local programming. And so now we've gotten to a point where, we can make this happen, and the programming gets put on the air pretty quickly. And so we're pleased to have the capability to do that, and we're really honored to have the opportunity to showcase some of the important stories and events in our region.
Terribly important. Dave, nice to see you as always.
Good to see you, Jim.
Chief Engineer. I'm going to have him just come in with a name tag, Chief Engineer, so I can remember that. James, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim.
I also want to tell the public how much I appreciate the staff here at Mid-Hudson Cablevision for producing these programs and basically making me look good, which I'm very grateful for.
You're the star.
That's my only chance to be a star, but they make me look very good. I appreciate it. James, thanks for your time as always.
Thank you, Jim.
I appreciate it. David, good to see you. And we'll be back after a few messages.
Looking to spice up your table? Mid-Hudson Cable invites you to travel with us and meet the chef. Join host Jim Riley as he gives you an intimate look at some of the area's best eateries, from the burger joint down the street to a 4-star restaurant. Meet the people behind the scenes who prepare some of the best dishes in the area. Thursday and Sunday at 8 p.m., Saturday at 11 and 8 p.m., with a new episode each month, only on Channel 11. Meet the Chef, available exclusively on Mid-Hudson Cable.
Welcome back. I have a special guest with me now, Lucas Cohn. Lucas, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Before we talk about some of the events, because everything you do is oriented towards helping kids, and we like that, tell us about your business and what you do.
Well, the Start to Finish Golf Academy at the New York Golf Park is in its second year. Just purchased the property last year and I had been looking at the property. It's on 9H just south of Claverick.
Right, okay, so people know where you are.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful piece of property that was really run down, and I'd kept looking at it for 5 years, and every time I came back to visit family and friends in the area, it was getting worse and worse and worse, and every time I saw it, I was like, man, this place could be so great, and now it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's just getting better, and everybody that comes to the property, if they had been there in the past, they look at it and they're just like, they look around, wow.
And they'd be thrilled.
Yeah,
now,
totally.
New York Golf Park, and you are a PGA professional.
Correct.
Okay. Give us a little background on that experience for you.
To become a PGA member, you must go through 3 stages of apprenticeship while working under a Class A pro. So
Right.
I completed the PGA apprenticeship while working at the Country Club of Pittsfield.
Right.
For Brad Benson over there, who's a Class A member.
Yeah.
So it's basically like getting your bachelor's degree in golf management.
Right.
You learn everything from taking care of turf grass, to running a tournament, to maintaining golf carts, to merchandising, and teaching, of course.
It's a business along with the golf. It's still a business.
Absolutely, all the country club management, profit and loss, and just the merchant. There's so much that goes into to making the customer happy when they show up on the property that you don't even realize. Sometimes the scorecards and the pencils and the towels and all the drinks and everything's everything's got to be in the right place. So they just show up smiling and you keep them smiling.
Right. Now, having said that, now you have a particular path that you followed. You developed Start to Finish Golf. Tell us about that.
Start to Finish Golf is, that's my company that I thought was a great name, and it goes for my teaching philosophy because I teach the setup, which is the start, which
Right.
includes your grip, posture, alignment, and ball position.
ABC, the basics.
Those are the 4 things you have total control
Do
over.
it again. The 4.
Grip, posture, alignment, and ball position.
Right, okay.
So those are the 4 things that you have total control over. And then the only thing that, especially in the first lesson, that I ever want any of my students to do is finish the golf swing in balance.
Right.
Because if you're hitting a good shot, you're in balance, and if you're hitting a bad shot, you're probably not in balance. So
right.
if you're falling over at the end of the swing, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. You know,
Right.
it's not going to be good.
No.
So even your misses get better when you finish in balance.
Which in golf is the key.
Right.
Your game's getting better when your misses are still playable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how you become more consistent, when your misses go the same distance and direction as when you hit it well.
Right. And that's a big leap for most recreational golf. I know that I feel that way, that my game is improving when I have that kind of direction. Now, the other thing I liked about your operation, I stopped to visit you a while back
Right.
over at New York Golf Park. I keep
Correct.
saying that so people have it in mind, is that you love to help kids. So tell us about that philosophy and how you got there.
Well, it's just fun. I'm a big kid myself, and kids are so moldable. They don't have any preconceived notions that they are going to do it this way, and they haven't built up these really bad habits. So I could change their grip and put their hands on the golf club, and they leave it there and don't say, oh, this feels terrible.
Right.
Because they haven't been gripping it 20 years the wrong way.
Like me.
Like some people,
Like
right?
some golfers,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, or the position of their backswing. If their backswing is too long and we get them to shorten it up, they usually take to it right away, and just do it. And like I said, they're very moldable. So it's really fun for me to see them change
Right.
and
improve
immediately.
Yeah.
Which is very rewarding for me to
Any teacher, because golf pros are teachers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my passion. I love to teach children. I love teaching anybody. I've taught people with one leg before, and
Right.
handicapped people. Actually, last year was one of the best lessons I ever gave. His name was Michael Dolan, and he was a strapping young lad at the age of 12, and I didn't know him at all, and I started helping him for free, and his uncle was bringing him out there, and I said, I could tell something was off, and he told me he had a stroke.
Right.
Very young. So he's right-handed, but he was swinging real hard. He was missing the ball
Right.
very often, and I could tell he was struggling, and I was like sitting there looking. And I asked him to shake my hand. So when he shook my hand with his right hand, it was, he couldn't really do it.
Right.
So I had him shake my hand with his left hand. And I sat there thinking, I'm looking at him. I'm like, all right, we're going to try something. So I turned him around.
Right.
And I made him lefty.
Right.
And he started hitting the ball. And he started hitting it well. And then I told his uncle, I said, you can bring him here, schedule with me. I want to teach him for free.
Right.
Because I just want him to have something to do, because I felt like he was giving the effort. And, if he's going to try it, I don't know how many other sports he's going to have the opportunity to do and do well.
So he should really get this
So
opportunity.
he right, and he
Yeah.
did, and he brought him, and his uncle brought him. And then his folks actually signed him up for one of my camps, my last camp of the summer last year. And by the end of the camp, he was hitting the ball like 125, 130 yards with his driver.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. It was just
Wonderful.
great to see. So it was really heartwarming, and it just made me feel great to know that we were able to get him to love something, and he's really into
And
it
again,
now.
golf, that's the other thing I love about the game. It's lifelong.
Right.
And that's wonderful. So I want to get specific now, because
Okay.
we talked about opportunities for kids. There's a couple of free things you said you had coming
Yes.
up. Tell us about those.
Well, I have. I'm doing 4 throughout the course of the season. 2 have already passed. This week that we're in right now, I currently have a camp going on that has
Right.
18 kids in it. That's the most I've ever had at the golf camp.
Right.
I had to bring in a couple assistants, some college golfers
Sure.
to help me. But what we do in the clinics is we just show them the basics again. And, it depends on how many kids show up, but what I do is I show them, just how to grip the club, how to stand, and how to finish the golf swing.
Right.
And then what I'll do is I have them all swing without a ball, and then I'll literally run down the line and I'll tweak everybody, and make them stand a certain way and hold them and have them hold it. But what I'm doing now is I'm actually getting the parents more involved. So I'll put the kid in the position, and then I'll say, hey, is this your child? Yes. I said, okay, well, this is the position we need to have him. We need to have his foot up off the ground. We need to have his hips turned and his hands high and wrapped around his body.
Right.
So I say to the parents, I said, if he's not here, you put him there. You don't have to force him, but just kind of like tweak him a little and hold him there and make him hold it, because that's how you attain that muscle memory.
Right.
And the longer they spend in these positions, the more comfortable they become.
What I like about that is when you can stop thinking about golf all the time and you have it muscle memory, it just makes you so much more confident to play the rest of the game.
Absolutely.
I like the idea of having the parents involved, because when they start committing to it, then everything improves, I think.
And speaking the same language is really important too, because sometimes, obviously the parents want the children to do well, and I'll give them just a few things to do. Maybe it's grip the club properly, look at the target, and hold the finish.
Right.
And then the parent might be saying, okay, turn your back to the target on your backswing. And I'll say, whoa, that's getting him away from the simple things that he
keep
needs.
it simple.
Yeah, keep it real simple. So I ask them to, speak the same language.
Right.
And just by doing that, it helps the kid recall, oh, this is what coach was asking me to do.
Well, I like also it helps the parent to relax instead of trying so hard on behalf of their child.
Right.
Get them kind of in sync.
We don't want to put pressure on the kids. We want them to like it. I don't even like saying perfect.
Right.
Because then the kid thinks that's what they're striving for is perfection all the time.
And I have to be perfect every time.
Right.
And golf, that doesn't
They'll
happen.
drive themselves crazy, and we want them to love it. So if they're always like striving for, obviously we're not satisfied with mediocrity either.
You want to improve.
Correct.
But this idea of being perfect is just too much responsibility.
Right, exactly. They'll put too much pressure on themselves.
Sure.
And I think that, when we start them, the way that we do with the basics, and then we get them in playing situations. So we do the free clinics. We have 2 more, and we teach them the basics, and then I actually let them go play the miniature golf course for free. It's basically like free junior golf day. They can just come and use the property all day.
And that's
even if they
really
miss,
nice.
Even if they miss the clinic,
right.
I'll let them go play.
Come on out and
hit
hit
some balls. I mean, the parent, and like on Father's Day and stuff like that, I give balls away. I'm always, I love it when I ask the group of kids, how many of you is this your first time? And if a half a dozen raise their hands, that's great.
Isn't that a thrill?
Because, it's fantastic. It really is. It really is.
Well, what I find, and I talked to our producer, Ryan. You met Ryan before we started up. And he said, we're going to leave dates off because we're not sure how we're going to get the show together. But the fact is, you'll always have free clinics for the kids.
Always, yeah.
The door will always be open at New York Golf Park. The location again.
It's on 9H, just south of Claverick, just north of Bell's Pond.
Okay. Now, again, we're going to give you it. Lucas Cohen, start to finish golf, New York Golf Park. Give us a phone number in case people want to call you and get some information.
The number to the park is 855-GO-SWING.
Okay.
And my cell number is 954-562-6881, and you can call me, text me. You can email me at lcohen@pga.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. We do birthday parties out there. And
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's batting cages out there too, and we have 5 cages that are they're open from sun up to sundown, and I'm actually making plans right now to actually light up the golf park.
Oh, that would be fun.
So it'll be open till probably about 10:30 at night.
All right. Lucas Cohen, New York
Jim,
Golf Park.
thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for joining.
All right.
So nice to see you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
taking the time.
Thank you. I
We
appreciate it. Thank you.
We also want to thank all of our guests, and certainly James Reynolds, President, Mid-Hudson Cablevision. Most of all, we want to thank you for joining us on All the Right Connections, and we'll see you real soon.
Welcome to Smart Home from Mid-Hudson Cable, a monitoring solution that brings the power of video to protect your family and home. Using cameras installed by Mid-Hudson Cable technicians, you can check in on your pets, be notified when your children get home, or look in on the nanny. Starting at just $14.95 a month, use your smartphone to monitor your home or business. Call today to learn how Smart Home can help you.